Coming up, Kemi Badenoch's time as leader of the Conservative Party has been marred by controversies, missteps and a series of underwhelming performances in both interviews and during Prime Minister's questions, PMQs. In this video, I'll delve into the key moments that have defined her leadership so far and cover some of the controversies that have plagued her tenure. Stay tuned. Let's start with PMQs. Every Wednesday when Parliament is sitting, the leader of the official opposition gets the chance to challenge the Prime Minister of the day with 6 questions of their choice. Traditionally, it's a great opportunity for the leader of the opposition to showcase their prowess on the public stage, holding the government accountable and exposing the Prime Minister's mistakes. But for Badenoch, the opposite has happened. This week saw her plumb new depths in her performance at PMQs. All 6 of her questions were repetitive and based on falsehoods. Here's just one typical example from the 6, where she opens with 2 lies, and just watch how Keir Starmer, hardly a brilliant operator at PMQs himself, completely eviscerates her. Enjoy.
Part 1 of the bill means a new employee could start a job in the morning and take their employer to a tribunal that afternoon. It is no wonder that this bill has been called an adventure playground for lawyers. This bill is terrible for business, but it is great employment for lawyers. I know the Prime Minister loves the legal profession, but he needs to stop being a lawyer and start being a leader. This is another measure in the bill that fails his growth test. Will he show some leadership and drop it?
Mr. Speaker, I understand she likes straight talking. She's talking absolute nonsense. She knows, and anybody who understands anything about the bill or any employment law will know you can't start in the morning and go to the tribunal in the afternoon. Now, Mr. Speaker, we know she's not a lawyer. She's clearly not a leader. If she keeps on like this, she is going to be the next lettuce.
And this isn't my lefty bias speaking. Commentators and journalists from across the political spectrum are united in their scorn for Kemi Badenoch's debating style. Here's the damning verdict from the bastion of the Conservative right, The Spectator magazine, now edited by Michael Gove, no less. Kemi Badenoch may well have been right in the points that she made at Prime Minister's questions, but she managed to go about making them in the wrong way. The Tory leader focused on the many contradictions between the government's focus on economic growth and its policies, but her phrasing of her questions and her attempts to defend the Conservative legacy made it easy for Keir Starmer to ridicule the questions rather than answer them.
The arrogance of the Prime Minister is that he thinks that it's his government that creates growth. He's wrong. It is business that creates growth. Our economy is built by entrepreneurs, risk takers, and the hard graft of working people. They know that you can't tax your way to growth. You can't borrow your way to growth. You can't legislate your way to growth. Other countries are serious about freeing business from red tape. President Trump is doing it in America. Argentina is taking a chainsaw to regulations. Even the EU is not going as far as this left-wing government. This bill will put us at the bottom of the pack.
She's got a nerve. They broke the economy, completely destroyed it. They broke the health service, completely destroyed it. They've ruined us on prisons and everything else you can mention. They failed on every front. They're in no position to give us lectures on anything. And she says that she accepts they've failed, they're changing. They've learnt absolutely nothing.
The rest of the article goes on in pretty much the same vein. It's basically a clear vote of no confidence in their hapless leader. The previous month, the New Statesman magazine highlighted Kamikaze's scattergun approach at PMQs and noted that she was missing multiple open goals, from the government's refusal to compensate the WASPy women who lost years of state pension entitlement to the ongoing uncertainty over the Chagos Islands deal. Opportunities that this underwhelming Labour government handed to Badenoch on a silver platter. Yet she took that platter, waved it around, and then started whacking herself round the head with it. You would have thought it wouldn't take much to get the better of the wooden and lacklustre Keir Starmer in the cut and thrust of debate. But the guy's toying with her, setting up verbal traps that she blunders into time after time. Quite frankly, she's terrible at PMQs. But perhaps I'm a biased lefty. Let's take a look then at the verdict on Kamikaze's PMQ performances from readers of Conservative Home, Tory donor Lord Ashcroft's online forum for Tory party supporters. A contributor calling themselves Scary Starmer says, I continue to have high hopes of Ms Badenoch, but fail to understand why she persists in attacking Starmer in issues the Conservatives are themselves vulnerable on. Harkadal adds, Starmer is not even slightly perturbed by Badenoch's ankle biting. And my favourite from John Sorrell, which I've had to slightly edit for reasons of his appalling grammar, as each week increasingly demonstrates her clear inability and utter failure to use the chance PMQs gives her to demonstrate the clear political and economic mess which this new Labour administration have got themselves into, it is clear that before long there will have to be, if it is to survive politically, another internal election to allow the Conservative Party to finally have a truly effective leader. Yeah, good luck with that one, mate. As your fellow Conservative Home Tory contributor Neil Rubidge comments, it is difficult to think of someone who would do the job better. The dismal failures of supposedly Conservative leaders, in inverted commas, biting, this century has left her with a tiny rump in Parliament, and there are few, if any, heavy hitters left. That, I guess, is his only reason for adding, if the Conservatives are to stand any chance, she must be supported for the foreseeable future. There's a few others on the site claiming it doesn't matter because voters don't care about PMQs in any case. But I distinctly remember during the Tory leadership election, many MPs said they were voting for Kemi Badenoch mainly because they believed she'd destroy Starmer at PMQs. To them, PMQs are important. And I agree with them. PMQs serve as a test for any political leader. It's an unrivaled platform to showcase leadership, policy knowledge and electability. And unfortunately for Badenoch, PMQs repeatedly highlight her shortcomings in all these areas. In one of her earlier appearances, Badenoch attacked the government's decision watering down the inheritance tax loopholes for farmers, siding with the tax-dodging Jeremy Clarkson and James Dyson by mischaracterising the move as a cruel family farms tax. Only for Starmer to retort with independently sourced figures showing that the vast majority of farmers would remain unaffected by the changes. But that's Kemi Badenoch. Never let the facts get in the way of political point scoring. In another session, Badenoch accused the Prime Minister of raising hopes and smashing them with a series of broken promises, mentioning cuts to winter fuel payments in particular. But this line of attack backfired when it was highlighted that she herself had previously referred to winter fuel payments as a dead weight and had advocated for means testing them. Here's a clip from the Daily Telegraph website if you don't believe me.
What I'm not going to do is come out with lots of micro policies about giving people £50 cash here or a rebate there. I think it's very inefficient. There is a lot of dead weight in how we run government. I have people in my constituency telling me that they don't need the winter fuel payments that we give them because they can afford it. Why do we not have a more sophisticated mechanism for means testing?
Inconsistencies and contradictions like these have eroded Badenoch's credibility and show her to be a leader more interested in political opportunism than principled leadership. Just last week, it was revealed that despite her recent criticisms of the Labour manifesto for suggesting that the Prevent programme might alienate certain communities, Badenoch herself had co-authored a 2015 report expressing similar concerns. This revelation not only highlights a glaring hypocrisy, but also raises questions about her consistency and integrity. But it gets worse. In the aftermath of the tragic Southport murders by Axel Rudabikana, Badenoch's arguments on integration and counter-terrorism came under scrutiny. Her assertions, based on personal anecdotes rather than data, were described by the Financial Times, no less, as being worrying. Their article went on to point out that although Badenoch was emphasising integration as a solution to domestic terrorism in the UK, Rudabikana and his family were indeed fully integrated into their small Lancashire community. And really this fact highlights that her arguments were disconnected from the specifics of this case, casting doubt on her grasp on national security issues. Badenoch's leadership style has also come under fire. She's been accused of creating an intimidating atmosphere within her department as the minister, with some colleagues describing it at the time as toxic. At least 3 officials reportedly found her behaviour so traumatising that they felt compelled to leave their positions. Such allegations of bullying and creation of a hostile work environment have further tarnished Kemi Badenoch's leadership credentials. And that's compounded by her limited engagement so far with the media, the public and party members, leading to doubts about her ability to unite the party and present a coherent alternative to the current government. She says she won't be putting forward any concrete policies for another 2 years. Presumably that's a decision that she's based on Conservative Party HQ's focus group work that suggests that any policy statements from the Tories this soon after their disastrous 14 years in government would rightly be regarded with suspicion by the UK electorate. And through her mixed messaging and contradictions, Badenoch has failed to distance herself from those previous Tory regimes, even going so far as to label the now reviled Boris Johnson as a great Prime Minister who fell into a trap over COVID rules. And internationally, she's managed to ruffle a few feathers too. Her disparaging remarks about Nigeria, her parents' homeland, sparked significant backlash in that country, with Nigeria's vice president accusing her of denigrating the country. Not exactly diplomatic finesse. No wonder pollsters have reported that her confrontational style is doing more harm than good to her party's performance in the polls. Anyway, however bad this Labour government has been, I'm pretty sure a Badenoch government would be even worse. Her tenure as Conservative leader has been marred by missteps, controversies and a complete failure to challenge Starmer's weak government. She's clearly out of her depth, as it's all too obvious to everyone through her performances at PMQs. Lacklustre and marred by inconsistencies and contradictions, and demonstrating a complete failure to grasp the issues. Coupled with numerous controversies and criticisms, her leadership has struggled to inspire confidence both within her own party and among the broader electorate. In desperation, Badenoch is now trying to reshape the traditional Conservative Party into something more resembling their noisy neighbour on the far right, Reform UK Party Limited. She's basically trying to out-Farage Nigel Farage. And given a choice between the two, the right-wing Gaminati would surely pick the real thing over the wannabe. If the Tory party are to experience electoral success ever again, and to make it clear, I for one really hope they don't, then they will need to move away from their polarising focus on culture wars and cruel immigration policies and back towards the centre ground. There's no way they could achieve that without a change of leader. She may be safe for now, but perhaps that merely makes Kemi Badenoch a cabbage rather than a lettuce.